nobody can do it like we can. And we can do it in shorter runs, we can do it in a timelier fashion, and we can just provide a higher level of service. There's a company up in Ankeny called AccuVolt, doing things perfectly, spot on. They're going to be adding about 400 jobs here in the near future. And their greatest concern is workforce. We got to find people. And so they're being very strategic in ways that they create that workforce and funnel that. They've got a partnership with DMAC that's just providing a constant stream of employees into their door. But I'm more concerned, I guess, about providing a viable workforce for these innovative companies so that we can plug and play and create sort of, this career path for our young people. And you talk about this math and science challenge that we have. That's where I think we really need to be strategic and help our kids identify these career paths and entice them to stay here in the state.
I mean, one of the economic stimulus in the state is our education system. Across the board, we've got community colleges they've been very innovative in trying to address the career paths and skills needed by our growing businesses, the regents, and even private colleges, in terms of making sure we have a skilled workforce that is attractive to businesses in the state and looking at moving here.
I've sat here and dominated most of the questions, so I do have one question left to ask, and if there is any question from the audience, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll try and get to you real fast, but I'm going to ask this. This week, the Republican National Committee is meeting in Washington, D.C., and they're among the Rules Committee's discussions. It'll be, will Iowa remain first in 2012? I was sitting at the Heartland Steak Fry in September, and I was listening to a CBS reporter, a national reporter, who was going live and talking, and he said something that caught my attention. He goes, this isn't just politics in Iowa, it's an industry. If Iowa were to lose that first in the nation status, how would that impact the state's economy?
If we lost it?
Yeah.
We're not going to lose it, so that's...
Yeah, I mean, there are some very positive aspects of that, and it does provide a good launching pad for the political campaigns, but there's no question that, people visiting here by the political parties and media and others spend a lot of hours in hotel rooms and restaurants and rental cars, and it is a nice boost for the economy, as well as it puts Iowa in the national spotlight. So those are two very positive benefits of the caucuses. But Iowans, you look at the numbers this last year, I think they take it a little seriously in the caucus project and participate vigorously. We had record turnouts, but we hope we can hold on to it.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, let me get to you.
Thank you. I'm Jim Wise from Des Moines. Some years ago, it was projected that Iowa would emerge into about 16 commercial centers throughout the state, with the population shifts from rural to urban areas. It seems to be moving in that direction, and if that's the case, my question relates to the transportation systems that are going to serve those commercial centers, as well as the infrastructure that those systems demand. Are there steps being taken by the state, or by federal government, or by local, to be able to meet this anticipated need?
I think that's why the legislature is discussing this Time 21 study that was done last year that takes a very serious look at particularly our highway infrastructure needs and what needs to be done to make sure it's up to speed, so to speak.
David, as you mentioned, somebody mentioned the industrial development forum to support the green energy boom in Iowa, in Fort Madison and so forth. But the plans utilities that are building the infrastructure for the wind generators are from the southeast, and the need is in the northwest. Are the highways and the byways able to handle that transportation system for those tremendously large pieces of equipment?
Well, two points I would make. One is that the need for these wind turbines and blades and towers and that whole infrastructure is not just Northwest Iowa. Actually, Iowa's right in the center of it. Illinois is a huge, if you look at those wind maps, Illinois, Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, we're in the epicenter. This is a good place to manufacture them. And it's especially a good place to manufacture them, not just because we've got a great workforce and great community colleges to help adapt that workforce, but because those turbines are so big, and the blades are so big, and the towers, wait till you start to see the towers rolling out, they're even bigger. If you haven't passed one on the highway, stand by, you'll know what it is you're passing, it's dangerous in fact. So it's also not a good thing to produce in China and import it, because they're so big. We are right in the center. And we have, as I said, we've had at least 5 major manufacturers relocate from Spain, Denmark, Germany, California to Iowa to begin to produce those. And we're seeing a lot more interest by similar companies in their supply chain, and we're really seeing Iowa manufacturers really respond. Those turbines have 8,000 moving parts. Okay? We can and do produce a lot of those parts in our state. And so, do we have the infrastructure to deal with it? For one, you'll see that one of those ports that you mentioned, you said Fort Madison, but right down the road there in Keokuk, an investor has put $70 million into the port of Keokuk so that they're going to be able to move blades and move that equipment up and down the Mississippi, because a traditional advantage of Keokuk is that's the farthest north port that doesn't freeze in the winter. And so we're seeing a rebirth of navigation or freight shipment there. Iowa is served by at least 3 major railroads, and the railroads are really, that industry is really going through an evolution, but we've got long had big advantages in that respect. Our roads clearly are going to take a beating in many small towns from all the ethanol production, which is still moving by truck, and all the grain that's moving into those towns by truck. That's going to have to be dealt with, but we're actually seeing the industry now start to respond with an infrastructure that responds to that. The Iowa Northern Railway, a short line that operates in northern and eastern Iowa, is now creating something called the Manly Terminal, in which they've built big storage tanks for ethanol, and all the ethanol plants within a 2-hour drive of there are bringing in and depositing their ethanol there and building unit trains and putting it then right straight down onto the major, with the unit train, they can get right onto access to both coasts, right on the major rail lines. And so we're seeing the infrastructure start to respond. Infrastructure requires long-term investments, and in the short term, there's going to be an impact on our roads, but we're seeing the infrastructure start to evolve, and as long as we're in the epicenter of it, I'm convinced we'll find a way to do it, but it's going to require investment.
Yeah, and I think Des Moines, as well as the other commercial centers, are working on their transportation needs. That's been a big focus for the partnership, working on regional transportation issues with all of our communities in the region, and the evolution of DART and that whole funding stream and program for DART has been important. But there's no question that road use tax dollars are getting stretched. The cities have to maintain and build the roads, and so there are some